Not sure if this is working. Okay, I think it is. Hi everyone. Just wanted to do another update. My situation is still kind of meh, kind of the same as last time. I wanted more check in and see how everyone's doing and just what's weird and wonderful going on in the world. I've seen a couple of different things. I didn't really have time to work on much of a work through of how to like show you things and not get copyright striketh. So I need to figure out probably just a I don't know an alternative or kind of maybe what they used to do where you could like make the image smaller and inside of another image so that it's not like or maybe like a partial image. I'm still trying to figure that out. It's so much stricter than it used to be. And as I said on the last video, I don't even want to show like full things. I mean, just like a clip or even a few stills would really suffice for a lot of things. I don't know why it used to be that just they would put commercials and pay the people that own the intellectual property, like they'd give them the money from the commercials. Now it's just like blocked. Like I upload something and it just goes, no, you can't have that up. And I'm like, but I'm not. I'm doing commentary on it. Like I'm talking about thought experiments. I'm talking about theories. I'm talking about what things remind me of. I'm not trying to just like take somebody else's movie or music video or something and just, you know, upload it here. So I don't know. So that just is what it is. Let's see. I have seen again more interesting commercials from Lexus that there's no point in trying to show you because that'll just get like blocked. But the everything is powered by you commercials, and then there was a different Lexus commercial where it was like this weird thing where they were saying, "We hope you enjoy your work," almost as if everything in the space, like they showed like a person, you know, interacting with different things and stores and obviously cars, Lexus, but it was alluding to like everything around this person was like a reflection of their consciousness or distorted reflection. It was like it was a weird commercial, but sometimes you find things like there was that what was that the whiskey or cognac commercial that had like the time differentiation stuff in it. Like sometimes you find like the strangest stuff in mundane product commercials. So Lexus, yeah, interesting right now for some reason. Um, Again, I think you could put it in many ways. You could take it like as a literal thing of saying things around you resonate with you because they reflect some part of you, or even everything you see um, kind of has a reality lens of your perspective because almost nobody is unbiased enough to completely look at reality just as it is. Pretty much all of us have so many biases built in, whether it's things that we were just like taught in childhood, like this is reality, or things that we decided for ourselves, like, oh, this is how I see reality. When you're just looking around, I don't even mean like looking at issues and becoming abstract. I mean like looking around and having almost like this memory cycle practiced of like, oh, I like this for whatever reason, or I don't like that for whatever reason. It's interesting to note the things that are mundane and boring to you that you overlook and the things that resonate with you, either positive or negative, and just questioning why you have those thoughts. Is it something that someone else taught you? Is it something that you taught yourself? Like, where are all of these different opinions about things going? I suppose like the most obvious one would be why some people resonate with you and why some people don't. And sometimes it's because somebody is very much like you don't get along with them. Or sometimes it's because someone is like representative to you of like an aspect of yourself that you abandoned. Like maybe there was a part of your personality that was like discouraged when you were young. So you still, it's almost like you might get mad at that person because you didn't get to be like that. Like there's all kinds of reasons why we react in different ways. I just find it interesting to kind of dig down and say, like, why? Why do I think this? Why do I feel this? Etc. Etc. And then, of course, getting into the much further out there thought experiments, or maybe thought experiment is the wrong word, but like the further out there conversations that we've had about reality and perspective and perception and all these kind of things. I think I was mentioning this before about memory gates, how I was doing a course on like neural networks and how they learn, and how you can actually divert what would be kind of an obvious learning path for a neural network by putting a memory gate on it. So I think like the simplest way to put it, which is not like technically correct but is easier to visualize, is say your process for coming to a conclusion about something just goes in a circle. Um, like a neural network will have many different points as to why it's going forward in a circle or the connections it's making, and those things can be predetermined, like a dense neural network, or those things can be more open-ended, where it's like the neural network is trying to figure out for itself why something should be this conclusion at the end. But you could put in what they call a memory gate, where you basically put like a little diversion in the natural circle and force it to go away from a conclusion, or force it to not see a possible path that could lead towards a conclusion you don't want. And I was just thinking about how, it's extremely oversimplified, but there's so much of that going on with the psyche of people. It just made me think of Westworld, where I believe, yeah, in the first season, where they find this photograph of the outside world on the ranch, like the rancher's daughter and the rancher. There's this photo, and he's looking at it, and he can see that it doesn't match up with everything that he's kind of been like overlaid, programmed with about his current reality. And he's glitching out because he can understand it, but the rancher's daughter, she still has these like imposed memory gates on her psyche. So when she looks at the photo, she says, "It doesn't look like anything to me. It doesn't look like anything to me." And that comes up like a few times during the series about these memory gates that you can force into. Obviously, in that case, it's a robotic mind, so it's like closer to the neural network idea. But for people, there are different deterrents and different things you can do to encourage people to come to certain conclusions. But I think that even deeper than that, it's like, could you convince somebody to think so differently that they actually perceive reality differently? Yes, you could, if you go into like hypnosis or things like that. But it goes into, that kind of sounds like a disempowering statement. I'm talking more about how actually it's an empowering thing to know that your perception alone can change how you're reading the situation around you or the world around you or whatever. And if you know that if you're able to rewire your own perceptions, you can change quite a few things. And while we're always like taught that physical change is the most important, it's only one layer of perception. And maybe that's like too basic because you guys are kind of too advanced and too down the road, but honestly, this is something that still, even though I have known, I guess in a mental way, as in like I've known the basis of what I'm saying there, that obviously how you perceive things affects how you interact with things. But it's taken me a very long time to actually take that to heart and not just to have it as like, oh yeah, I know that, that's obvious, but never actually bringing that into anything more than just thought space. And it reminds me of this class trip that I went on quite a few years ago now, where I was maybe 11, like that kind of age, quite a few years ago. And one of the student teachers, I believe, he wasn't like our full-time teacher, but he was teaching us for part of the year that year. He accompanied us on the trip, and he had a lot of very interesting, like, spiritual, not just beliefs, but things that he was like practicing and understanding, and he was like really opening his perceptions. And we had this like fire pit. At one point, we were near the beach, and we were actually able to make like a fire on the beach, like a big fire, not just like a small one. And I had never kind of considered, because I guess I just didn't know at the time, that there were people that could like walk on hot coals or walk on fire and not get burned. So it was like a really mind-opening experience to me about perception and about how reality can interact with you depending on where you are in this whole thing. Because that teacher, he got onto like the bonfire. There was like this long plank that went like right across the top of it, but there was like fire overlapping everywhere. So he starts onto this long plank, and then he's like walks through the bonfire, and he doesn't get burned. And I remember it being like such a big eye opener for me, because a lot of the people that were around me were so I don't know, literalist is the right word, because he literally walked through the fire and didn't get burned. But I mean like people that believe with every fiber of themselves that that's not possible, so therefore when they do it, they always get burned, because they believe that no matter what, the fire is going to burn them, and no matter what, it's going to be, some big problem, and no matter what, like, life is just so impossible. And it was just very refreshing to be around someone that was like, actually, we barely understand anything about where we are or what's going on. So it's, way more actually logical to be like, we don't fully know. Sure, we know that we've seen this or that with this or that different person, but there have been outlier cases where things that are supposedly impossible have happened to ordinary people, and people just put it down to like folklore or a miracle, or they just go, well, I don't know, kind of like the photograph thing I just talked about. Doesn't look like anything to me, even though they just saw it themselves. So even though I'm saying that obviously if you're in a mindset that everything is extremely dangerous to you, you're just more open to that harm coming to you. And I know it's so easy to say that and to be like, well, I'm open-minded to, touching fire and not getting burned, but it burns. Like, I understand that's a real thing too, but I'm just saying that there's some people that seem to have like a little bit of wiggle room with that, where just inexplicably, it's not that they can break the rules of what's going on around us. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, Neo and the flying bullets and he just stops them. But I'm saying I've seen it, people who can wiggle around a little bit or bend things a little bit. And the strange and unusual, because it's not impossible, because it does happen, the strange and unusual can happen with those people. So if it can happen with some people, it can happen with others. We just don't know the mechanism. It's easy to say, oh, it's belief or it's perspective. There's probably more to it than that, but we don't really have the language as to why are some people more free in this experience and others are stuck in a very kind of dense, heavy kind of existence where everything is consequences. And I don't know if it makes any sense, but kind of like how I divide it up in my mind is like people who are kind of more on that like spiritual wavelength, they're, kind of maybe living in a perception where things are nicer or like less consequential, or where happy things can happen and things just work out and miracles just happen and all kinds of things can just happen. And then other people, they seem to be more in this wavelength where it's super consequential. I remember this show that one of my friends was watching, and it was way too like violent. It was way too much for me. So I was like, oh, no thank you. That's kind of, whoa. But this show on Prime called The Boys, where everything was super consequential. So it was like people had superpowers, but everything that could go wrong kind of did go wrong. Like people would get horribly injured, or like, I don't know what it was, like blown up, or something like really tragic and unfortunate and traumatizing would happen, or something like evil and traumatizing would happen. Like, just, that's kind of what I'm talking about when I mean like some people live in that kind of bandwidth where they believe everything is super negative and consequential, and they just kind of exist in that, and they don't understand how anyone could live outside of that. And it's like, some people exist completely outside of that, and they don't even know that that kind of super consequential stuff exists until they come across somebody that like lives in that space. um, it's kind of, how we all think like, oh, everybody else thinks like I do. And when in reality, there's so many people who don't think anything like you do. And that's what makes all kinds of things possible. Everybody that I know is kind of like, oh, well, if people think like me, then things make sense. And it's like, if everybody thought like you, there would be no point in the other people existing. Because if consciousness or whatever's going on here, I guess to put it kind of simply, is like, if consciousness is running an experiment with all these variables, like all these different people, it's like this emanation of consciousness to see where does it go? How does consciousness grow up into something bigger and amazing from, maybe kind of similar starting points, or maybe very disparate starting points, but still, the more different all these different things are, these not just starting places, but the people that come forth from that, the more useful and interesting the whole experience is. I feel like if everyone is exactly the same, what's the point? If we force everyone, if we say, well, we have a tradition where we believe that this is reality and everyone has to believe that way, in whatever regards. Uh, it could be something silly, it could be something huge, it could be like some culture believes that some particular type of food is the healthiest and everyone should eat that, and that's just reality and that's how it is. And it's like, well, actually, maybe it doesn't suit other people. Maybe other people have like a more acidy tummy and it doesn't agree with them, or maybe some people have different nutritional needs and it doesn't work out. I don't think there's any one size fits all, and I think if there was, it would make this whole experience more pointless. Um, Whether it actually means anything or not, to me, it's more interesting that I come across people that I couldn't even imagine. Like, if I was writing a book or something, I couldn't come up with these characters because they're so different from me. And that, I don't know, just, I'm really just, I guess, appreciating that more than I used to. I never understood just how cool that was, that there were, like, on every level, there's people that perceive and process reality completely different than I do. There's people that perceive and process social interaction, or, any kind of thing you can think of, so differently than I do. And of course, that comes with good and bad, but still, at least, it's something to make this all, maybe more interesting isn't the right word, but kind of like to take our minds off of all the doom and gloom and the botheration and the worry and just all these, you know, things. It's nice to just kind of be in that summer, maybe more silly headspace where you're just thinking about like less serious things, which has been very good for me because I've been, my mind's been on serious things. It's been a serious couple of years. There's just been all kinds of things going on. And it's really easy to go into a negative place and be like, oh my gosh, are there things that exist in my life just to like stress me out? And why is it that I'm not organized enough to deal with things or to reorganize life so it's less stressful, or to do this, do that, do this, do that? Just like getting away from that for a minute and just being like, I'm just gonna put my mind completely elsewhere for like a little while, because everyone needs a little mental vacation, even if it's only, 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long. You can still have a mental vacation if you go just kind of completely into a calm state or a meditative state, or if you can get away from the madness of the world, like even to just be like, oh, I gotta go check the mail, or I gotta go to the bathroom or whatever, and you're not actually doing that. You're just like finding a minute where no one's gonna bother you, just a short amount of time, and just kind of visualizing something really peaceful, which is, different for different people. For me, I like to visualize like a really sunny beach, because I have good memories of like sunbathing on the beach long ago with like my eyes closed, just feeling like the warmth and listening to the waves rolling in and stuff. But for people that don't like the water, or they didn't grow up near a beach, it could always be like maybe a forest or a field, or just whatever it is that makes you feel at peace, like on a body level, not just like your mind. And because your mind wants to stay busy and active, so it's going to think of like scenarios and problems, and which is the opposite of like what I'm talking about, where it's just like, whew, unwinding, getting out of that for a minute and going somewhere else. I've even found it useful for like the kind of astral projection things that I was doing, where having a visualization of like the 10 steps going downwards from like your completely awake state to like just sleeping state. And I don't usually go like full down to sleeping state. I go to that like sleeping state for me where it's like kind of close to morning, but I'm still like quite deep underneath, to where I'm not fully tuned into what's going on around me, but I might sense like a bit of the daylight. I find like, instead of just counting from 1 to 10 or 10 to 1, which was part of the gateway process tapes, if in like when you're going through the transition you go to that peaceful place, it's much easier to get from like the stressed out, oh my gosh, awake state, to that really peaceful like state where your body is asleep but your mind is awake. So for me, I'm like starting there at the like I said, the stressful state of mind, and then going to like, as I go down the steps in my mind, like in my meditation, going to like that beach and those waves, and instantly I can feel like, even now just thinking about it a little bit, my body is just like relaxed and happy to like let go and just go into the deeper rest state. And you don't have to go into any kind of astral projection madness if you don't want to. You can just use that to get into like a really deep meditation state and just sit there and just let the body heal itself and be happy. You don't have to do big crazy work or big crazy stuff all the time. Sometimes you gotta actually get away from that and be like, I'm not gonna do any big crazy work for this next, meditation session. I'm not trying to transform every bit of myself. I'm actually just going to let my body do its own thing, because my body knows how to heal itself better than my mind trying to impose its understanding of healing upon like the whole system. Which has been hard for me, but it's like, yes, I've known, again, in a mental space, but I'm still trying hard to take it to heart, that there's many intelligences in the body, and there's many layers and levels of consciousness, and to try and force the mental awareness stressed out state on everything to try and control it is something I have a problem with. And just letting go and being peaceful is something I'm just continuing to try and work on. So anyways, this was a lot of rambling. I just wanted to check in with everybody. I still have a lot going on. Maybe next month I can do more. And yes, I will figure out some kind of way to make, to talk about some of the things and commercials and stuff that I find like interesting, because I want to like have these conversations. But like I said, I've had like a few videos blocked now, so I need to like rethink all that. I know my focus has been elsewhere, and like I said, there's still stuff going on, but by the beginning of next month, hopefully situations will have shifted and I'll have a new idea of what the heck I'm doing, and we can have more conversations. So I hope you're having a really good summer and good time. I hope that you are, like I said, finding a minute to de-stress. I know there's hella a lot going on, but I didn't want to make a big stressful video to like shake you up. Like life is probably doing that enough. So I wanted to try and bring it in the other direction and be like, it's okay to be peaceful because it's June and it's beautiful and we need to enjoy the little moments that we can get. So anyways, yes, I know I look really tired and my hair's all wet and everything. Well, it's probably dry now because I've been talking so long, but it's everywhere. Sorry about that, and talk to you next time.